Welcome to Labmiss.com and our lab video series on Cisco ISE 3.0. This is Metha, your instructor for this video series. For a complete list of ISE videos, you can visit our website under the security section. There you can also sign up for our newsletters to receive the latest video updates. In this video, we are going to walk you through ISE graphical web interface. This is where you will be performing most, if not all, of your configuration on, so definitely trying to become familiar with this. ISE GUI has come very far, and it seems like there are always some changes made to the GUI in every ISE releases. The last major appearance and menu changes were back in ISE 2.1, I would say. Then in the 2.3, the policy set page got a new facelift. If you have already seen the GUI in the previous version, please use this video as a refresher. We will point out some new features in this version as well, and we will try to complete some basic configuration along the way as we make our way through the GUI. Let's get to it. We completed the installation of our second ISE node in the last video, which is the LM ISE2 with the IP address 172.16.32.103. Although in this lab, we're going to be dealing with the ISE number 1, which has the IP of .102. We'll use that to work on the GUI, as we're going to position that as our primary admin node. The servers are sitting on a server VLAN 32. That same VLAN, we have a Windows 2019 domain controller, DNS, and certificate authority server at the IP of .40, and we'll be using that server throughout this video series. All of the servers on that VLANs are connected to our core switch, switch 1, right here, which also provide access to the internet if needed. Let me bring up the RDP session to our Dropbox, which is our Windows 2019. I already have logged into LM-ISE1. And the first thing that you see is the home menu with the default summary dashboard. If you are an existing ISE2.x user, one noticeable change is the disappearance of the top configuration menu, which has become a collapsible menu icon on the top left-hand side right there. So you're going to have to get used to not being able to click on those menus directly anymore on the top, but you have to expand it using that icon. The color scheme and the theme have also been changed to align with other Cisco products like Cisco 9800 controller, the ACI APIC version 4.x, or even the PHY Power Management Center version 6.6. Right, moreover, everything is pretty much now HTML5. Like the previous versions, by default, there are 5 dashboards: the summary, endpoint, gas vulnerability, and threat. All right, so the summary dashboard gives you an overview system metrics. On the top banner right there, right, from the total endpoint all the way to the right-hand side, which are, I guess there are more if you keep clicking to the right. And then we have a collections of commonly used dashlets underneath, right here. Since we haven't really configured anything on our ISE, there isn't much to see right now as far as the statistics and data. On these dashboards, you can customize them by rearranging dashlets if you like. If you want to move them around like this, you can do so. Or you can also add more dashlets using a drop down right here, add dashlets. If the default dashboard don't give you what you need, you can also create your own dashboard. So let's go ahead and try a couple things that we can do. I showed you the rearrangement of dashlets earlier. Yep, maybe we want to see the system summary as the first dashlet, then you just drag and drop. You can try to add a new dashboard. You can either click a plus sign right here, you can do a drop down and click new dashboard. Let's go ahead and use the plus sign. Let's call this one LM for lab minutes. We're going to create our own customized dashboard, and then you're presented with a list of dashlets that you can add. Let's pick a couple. Maybe we'll do authentication, device type. We'll do endpoint category, just because you kind of want to keep track of what kind of endpoints are in your network, and system summary, right, to keep track of the performance of ISE nodes. Let's go ahead and add that. So we've got 4 dashlets in here. What else we can do? So we tried that already. You can rename the dashboard if you want, if you don't like the default name. I don't know if you can actually change the default though. Let's see. Yeah, for the default one you can't change, just the customized one. You can export it. You can change the layout, the template. By default, there are 3-column layout. You can change to 2 if you like, just like that. You can mark it as a default dashboard, or you can just reset it. So not a whole lot you can do, creating, rearranging, adding. Yep, just move the system summary over there. All right. So that's for the default homepage on ICE. Now we're going to work our way through ICE configuration menu from left to right, top to bottom. For the most part, starting with the context list. By the way, if you're trying to look for something and you're not completely familiar with the GUI yet, you can just type it into the search bar at the top right here. If you want to go to the default dashboard, you can do that. There's also a shortcut key to expand this menu using Control / and then to get out of this, you can just hit escape. And there's a quick link for making a wish as well. Context visibility, endpoints. All right, so here you can perform pretty much anything the endpoints related, whether to view. There's a table down below. There's a summary and a graphical representation at the top. You can add endpoints right here. You can edit endpoints. You can quarantine if you want using ANC, push COA, or perform any MDM related actions. Just to name a few, there's a few more you can do right there also. There are tabs for each use cases at the top from authentication, BYOD, and they're just focusing on those use cases. Right? So what's going to be different is the columns that's being shown at the table down below will only be related to those use cases. You can also create your own tab if you like with the downward pointing arrows right here, create new. You can pretty much freestyle select columns you want to see, or if you want to select from one of the predefined categories, you can do that too. Right? If you want to look for endpoints, you can search using the column filter. Pretty much all the column header supports the filter. So it will be very important as part of your troubleshooting. If you want to see how the endpoints are being seen by ICE, then you'll come to this page and most likely filter by the MAC address. Next one is user. Similarly to the endpoint, you can view a list of users, whether they're employee or guest. They're being shown right here. And there isn't really any actions that you can perform on the user. You can see all those actions actually done at the endpoint. And that is because a user can own multiple endpoints. All right, so this will be informational only, this page right here, employees or guests. Network devices gives you user sessions from the network device perspective. If you look at the columns, you get the device name, device type, the location, and the number of endpoint connected to it. There is a little nifty thing that you can do right here, right, that allows you to pull a .1 export status from selected network device. You can see you can run the status on selected switch or a network device. On all of them, you can download reports and review, right, just to see how the endpoints are authenticated on a given device. Okay, just want to point that out because it's kind of hidden on the page that you might not come here very often, but it's also a good troubleshooting tool. Then the last option under the context visibility is application. It's just a list of application that ICE is running on your Windows and Macintosh endpoints. You can see the list of applications right here, and then the endpoint that the software is running on, the OS. You can see Windows or Macintosh. My guess would be that ICE collects these from the app visibility feature from ICE Posture Module, because that's how it obtains the application information from endpoints. Next is the Operations tab, starting with the Radius LifeLog. So LifeLog is still probably #1 place to come for monitoring and troubleshooting endpoints authentication in real time. And we're going to be visiting or revisiting this page a lot throughout the video series as we perform all sorts of authentications and trying to understand how the endpoints pass or fail authentication. Okay, so you'll be spending a lot of time on this page, both in our lab here and most likely in your production. You can search specific target using these column filters, right, because you're going to in a very busy production or even a regular production network, you're going to end up seeing a lot of logs coming in, and your best tool here is to use the filter. Live sessions, on the other hand, shows currently connected .1x session as well as any user AD login activity if you have the AD integration going with the passive ID features. Next is the TACX live log, which is pretty much the same thing as the Radius live log, but it is exclusively for TACX device admin. So ICE has separated the real-time log for Radius, or between Radius and TACX. Adaptive network control. So this section right here is for configuring ANC policies and assigning policies to endpoint, usually if you want to perform a quarantine action. We looked at this particular feature extensively back in the video SEC 0223 in ICE 2.0 video series. All right, so probably not going to cover that in this video series again. For threat-centric NAC, LifeLog, this allows you to monitor any activities related to threat-centric NAC solution. Under troubleshooting, ICE comes with a few diagnostic tools. As you can see right here, you got authentication troubleshooting. You can run commands on network devices. For example, evaluate config validator on a network device, just to name a few. There's a TrustSec tool at the bottom too for any TrustSec related troubleshooting. You can download the logs, and new in version 3.0 is this debug wizard right here. So what this is the debug templates just to help you quickly troubleshoot a specific issue. And this could be, for example, .1x related Active Directory and all that. I would say for the most part, this is meant to be used by TAC unless you're a savvy ICE user, right? It will, if you click in one of these, it will just go in and start enabling or changing locking level. For example, you can see that a few locking level is shown as debug as opposed to info, right? It's just a template. And then the last one under the operation is report, right? This is the whole section dedicated to running or scheduling reports, right? My report is the port that you ran. These are the sample reports categorized based on the use cases, your audit, device admin, and whatnot. And there's down below is a way for you to schedule a report to be run as well. Moving on to the policy section. So the policy menu is where a lot of ICE policy decisions are made. You may or may not spend time in this section, and that depends. If you are a long-time ICE user like myself who are used to doing pretty much everything that's related to the policy configuration from right here, or if you are more comfortable going through the work center, which we'll cover in a little bit, right? Because the two kind of, I don't want to say redundant, but it's two different ways for you to configure ICE policy. Anyway, we're just going to go through this just to show you what's located here. And then when we get to the work center, you'll see how it gets mapped back to this page right here. Starting with the policy set. So the policy set is basically a collection of authentication and authorization policies. This is where every single Radius authentication request is processed against. All right, so when ICE receive a Radius request, it basically put it through top to bottom and trying to find a matching policy. All right, so the matching happens at the two levels. At the first level, you first match the incoming authentication by their common characteristic using appropriate condition. You can see if I do a plus sign, there's a condition columns where you can define conditions, and this could be something as simple as matching wire.1x, wireless.1x, VPN. And then once there's a match, you basically put them through a separate sets of authentication and authorization rule, which basically that is the second layer down. I guess let me go ahead and reset this first. I can show you, right? Once there's a match, by default, there's a default policy set. So if you don't have anything configured, everything will be processed through here. Like I mentioned, everything is based on top-down matching. Okay, the first round of matching will happen at the authentication policy level and then followed by the authorization down below. Without going into too much detail, we will definitely get to see how things gets added here throughout the video series, right? That's a majority of the configuration is being done under the policy set. Next is the profiling. So the profiling policies are what ICE uses to determine types of endpoints. It actually gets deeper than that with the whole concept of device probes and policy matching. But at the very high level, ICE figured out an endpoint by passing attributes it discovered from various types of probing through these policies right here. And whichever one that results in the best match will yield the device type, right? So that particular MAC address will be marked with one of these device type as a profile. These are ICE default list of device type. It can recognize out the box. Without doing feed updates and all that, there's 642 of them, at least in this version of code. You can get more profiles from the live feed updates from Cisco, which will enable in a little bit, and then you also have an option to create your own policies. We'll look at this profiling more extensively under the device profiling video. Posture. Posture policies are part of ICE posture assessment capability. Here, you define what, who, and how a device is checked for posture status. There's a bunch of default policy that comes with it, so you can decide whether or not to use them. And you can see there's a matching conditions on the left, and then the requirement, which is what to do with that, or matching endpoints on the right. All right, and we'll look at this in a posture assessment video. Client provisioning. So client provisioning deals with ICE pushing out either a piece of software or profile to client, and this is configuration profile, in order to complete certain activities. And this can be things like device onboarding, where the client needs to download a certificate, as well as the network configuration profile as part of the BYOD flow in order to connect to the network, or it can also be AnyConnect client with ICE posture module if you want to perform a posture assessment on an endpoint. Then we have policy elements. The first submenu is dictionary. So dictionary with ICE comes with extensive list of dictionaries that gets used throughout ICE configuration life cycles. A good example is the radius. So any radius attributes that you can think of, whether it's a standard radius or the vendor specific for Cisco, right? You can mostly find them right here. There you go. Yep, you can see there's a lot of them. So it takes a little bit of time to update. And then you have the system defined dictionary as well as the user. So anything you cannot find in the system, you can create yourself, right? And that will be put under the user section. Conditions. ICE policy works under the concept of condition matchings and result, as you saw previously. Basically, if there is a match based on certain conditions, then ICE perform some action. You can define those conditions in line of the policy rules, or, if you prefer, create a library of condition objects that are reusable. Right, so you can create conditions objects for authentication authorization. You see time and dates right here. You can create it for profiling as well as posture. If you want to create your own condition libraries, then you start from the top right here with the library conditions. Define your matching conditions, and you can add the logics in there as well, whether it's the and or. Smart conditions are frequently used conditions. Right, the Cisco thinks that you're going to be using this all the time, so it's included by default. You can see there's nothing you can do, but viewing it, for example, to match a wired .1x, Cisco will be looking for a NAS radius port type of Ethernet and a radius service type of frame. Because Cisco ICE support third-party vendor devices as well, and you can see the definition could be vendor specific. And these are some of the examples of the supported vendors. Well, the one that comes by default anyway, right? Because you can define your own if needed. Time and date, if you want to specify when exactly an authentication will be allowed, then you use the time of day conditions. Network conditions, I would say this was inherited from ACS, because if you're familiar with ACS, it looks the same as what you had with ACS. This is where you can condition based on end station, network device, and groups, and the network ports. So if you have a need for those, or maybe you're migrating from ACS and are currently using those conditions, you can see they're supported right here. Results. So result is the second half of the equation in ICE policy. This defines the action that ICE needs to perform in response to a matching condition. For authentication, it's just basically what protocols you allow the endpoint to perform. Right, there's one default allow protocol right there, and you can review them. The most commonly used protocol, TLS, PEEP, DTLS, EFAS, for example. Then for authorization, this is mainly what Radius attributes to return, which translates to things like dynamic VLAN assignment or downloadable ACL. For the profiling, it's pretty much a COA that you can perform or nmap scan. For the posture, it's a remediation action. So if the endpoint is found to be out of compliance, what do you want it to do or allow it to do? Right, it could be displaying messages, update antivirus, for example. And then for the client provisioning, this is basically the client software and network configuration profile that you want to be able to push to the client. All right, so we're about halfway through right there.